Welcome to another presentation for the Globe Sound Healing Conference. Now we have Sonja Drakulich. Welcome, Sonja.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me.
Sonja is an internationally acclaimed vocalist, producer, composer, and founder of the voice and somatic therapy method for holistic therapeutics. As the founder of the electroacoustic world music project Stella Mara and as lead singer of Fawn, she has toured throughout the U.S. and Europe, performing in the most prestigious theaters, concert halls, castles, and cathedrals around the globe. Sonja leads international workshops, retreats, and private courses. Her clients include professional singers and dancers, actors, martial artists, performers, coaches, healers, students, and professionals from all walks of life. She's developed a unique method of vocal-based somatic therapy, qigong, and ritual rooted in nada yoga, ancestral healing, and in the synthesis of optimal technique practices she has learned throughout the Eastern and Western world. Throughout her studies and her career as a producer, performer, and teacher, she maintains her focus on the devotional aspect of song and on intercultural unification through music. And she's also one of our instructors at the Institute. What have you been up to lately?
Oh, well, my life has changed this year, as all of ours has. So it's given me time to dive into my studies and diving deeper into the Taoist yogic arts and developing courses and really loving teaching this year and being able to move from doing so much performing and touring to really being of greater service because I just see how much people need vocal therapy for even just subtle trauma or chronic low grade trauma or nervous system regulation. So I've been doing a lot of study in this realm and practice and helping as much as I can in this way. I'm sort of obsessed with the therapeutics of the voice, so that's what I'm going to be talking a lot about today. So I've also moved a couple of times, and there's been a lot of upheaval in my personal life with all the moving and the fires in California. So
Hmm.
it's been, it's been testing my resiliency as well. But I feel good. I feel good today and happy to be here. And yeah,
Cool.
really love the work at the school. So thank you, David. It's such an honor to be on staff.
So I have the big question I've been asking everybody, and that is if you had all the money in the world, what would you do to help people on the planet?
Wow. Well, I really wish I had all the resources to do this work. It's really what I'm doing, which is what a lot of also my presentation is going to be about. And the essence of it is honestly, it's communion and reconnection and to do whatever it takes to help remind people that we're interconnected with all life and nature. And I feel like if there's this remembering and this communion, then our environmental problems would be um, resolved because we would make choices based on that, based on our interconnection and remembering um, how fragile life is and how much all life is needed. So um,
There would
it would
also be no more war, and everybody would be treated equally.
definitely, definitely, and sustainable ways of living. So there's a big aspect of remembering how our ancestors lived, and remembering and honoring indigenous peoples, and learning from them and learning from animals. So another aspect of this work is coming into ways that we can remember interspecies communication as well, because we have a
Hmm.
lot to learn from our mammalian kin. And it's an exciting time for this research. There's actually a lot of research going on with computer algorithms that are decoding mammalian language.
Hmm.
So starting with whales, and that's extremely exciting. We'll see how that goes in technology, but there's also ways that we can do this inwardly and through the ancient ways. So that's what I love to focus on with these folk songs. And
Cool.
I'm going to speak more about this in this
Cool.
presentation.
So tell us about your presentation, and then you're going to do a little invocation and music.
Yeah, I thought that I would focus a little bit on this ancestral healing, communion, interconnection, interspecies connection through these folk songs. And so I'll give a couple of examples and talk about the healing that's innate in these songs and why. And then I'd like to go into more of the neuroscience around the voice and why our voice is the most healing instrument that we have, that we carry around with us everywhere. So this is very exciting. So I want to talk about this and uh, the somatic therapy aspect around that. And and then I'd like to go into some practice and some technique because I teach actually very experientially, and it's all about doing it, right? It's all about doing
Hmm.
it. So we're going to actually do some practice together.
Cool. I
Yeah,
can't wait. Okay.
great.
Go ahead.
All right.
Thanks.
So these are a couple of Bulgarian songs, and I'll explain later. I just want to go ahead and sing it, and then we'll go into the meaning of them after. So those are folk songs from Bulgaria, and we're going to go into, I'm going to speak a lot about the meaning of these songs in the presentation. Um, I think I'll just go ahead and go to the presentation to do that. So,
Cool.
yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And let's see. All right.
Cool.
So, yeah, this is the only um, presentation like this I've ever put together, so excuse it. It's a little little amateur, but gives you the idea, right? So, so this is the region of the second song called Altamara, Morimano, has different names. And it's the Pirin region of Bulgaria. The first song is from the Rhodop region, which is also a very mountainous region. And you can see on my right the traditional women's dress and how I love this because when you put these pictures side by side, you really see that interconnection with nature, just with the way that they dress, with the flowers in their hair, the colors matching the trees. And when you dive into these songs, you realize how they are all about ways to express grief, and not all of them. They're also celebrating and dance songs and coming of age songs and lost love, of course, like in any culture. But the oldest songs and the songs that I like to focus on are actually pre-Christian songs, pre Greek Orthodox songs, and they are have animistic roots. And it's really about this interconnection between the species. And in every song, um, unless it's more of a grieving song about, let's say, the Ottoman Empire, there's a lot of those, and people being taken away from them, and occupations and those songs. But that's also that expelling of grief that we're going to talk about. That's really important in humanity to be able to have a role for that. Other than that, I would say that all these songs really have this commonality of humans being in a receptive role, listening to nature and nature talking to the humans. So it's not just about a shepherd singing to a sheep or a cow. It's about the river is speaking to the sheep, and the sheep is speaking to the shepherd, and the shepherd is listening. It goes both ways. And there's also many, many levels of symbolism in these songs. So a song with the pulpar tree, for example, it means something to the village. It means something in a more archetypal way of a young love. You know, it has this symbolism that has to do with the time of the year that it blooms and the associations that come along with these trees, and also the rituals. There's a lot of animistic rituals that are still alive today in Eastern Europe that are combined now with the Orthodox traditions, that are very fascinating. And there's also, I just had the fortune of studying with this incredible Serbian village singer online, and she was going into, of course, she didn't call it sound healing, but she was talking about the dissonance. So you heard in that piece, you heard this minor second, which I held. And on the harmonium, on this harmonium, it doesn't sound that great, but it's ah, ah, really playing with two voices with those dissonances, either the major second or the minor second, and sometimes in the seventh as well. And she was just saying, "Oh, it just heals my brain. It heals my brain." And here she is saying this in a very, without outside of the context that we're in, just from a purely traditional context of her upbringing and her tradition. And so I'm really passionate about coming back to our old ways, learning how our ancestors worked with sound healing, learning how our ancestors worked with music therapy and movement therapy and somatic therapy, because there's a lot there. There's treasures there that we've all too much forgotten, as well as the new technologies that we have that are helping us move forward. Because, of course, now we have a lot more stressors on our system as well. So, um, here's just a couple images of interspecies connection. Our natural, excuse my, our natural way is to be connected, is to be in communion, to feel this love and compassion for all species. And I just love these pictures. Here's the Mongolian and the Siberian cultures. They have the Siberians are completely intertwined with the reindeer, where their lives depend on each other. And it's one example. We see this in many traditions around the world. And they actually dream, um, the, the shamans will dream and get information from the reindeer. And, um, and this is also where the overtone traditions come from. They all come from these nomadic uh, uh, cultures where they use sound and these overtones that are also created with the dissonance I just gave you an example for, in order to enter into trance states and in order to get information from beyond just these three dimensions. So also remembering this, remembering these old ways. So jumping to today, I don't need to really explain that much, but we see the separation that we're in and how individualized we've become and isolated. And this is something I left my notes on here so you can actually see them, and perhaps if you want to jot any of this down. I find this to be a very astute analysis of our isolation and how depression comes from isolation. So Gabor Mate attributes this to Karl Marx. I haven't actually done the research on what exactly Karl Marx has said. This is Gabor Mate's translation of it. So 4 kinds of depression from isolation: alienation from nature, and we're going to get into the vagus nerve a lot. I'm going to go as quickly as possible around it, but it's really what I'm most excited about these days. Um, alienation from others. So the less contact we have, and we're really seeing this year, right? We're really seeing this. The less contact we have and the less intimacy we have, it leads to more of the sympathetic nervous system response, where we trust less, because we're mammals. We're mammals, and we need affection, we need touch, and so there's lots of ways in the workshops I'm doing this year, especially, of just self-care, how to really get yourself into more of a parasympathetic restorative state, even though we have such isolation this year, and a lot of depression and a lot of issues that are coming along with that, unfortunately. But we can get through this. We really can, and we have these ways. This is also the age of information, where everything's available to us. So that's the saving grace here, and the new technologies, like the technologies that you're creating, David. So alienation from our work. So this is interesting, because just the fact that when we as creators, each of us are a creator, a unique creator. No one else can create and express the way that you do, specifically you. And when we spend our lives in work where we're not creating from our essence, and we're not creating work that has meaning and service for humanity in a meaningful way, of course that's going to cause depression, because we're built to do this. And then finally, the alienation from ourselves. And this is this disconnect from our own intuition. So we're born with gut feelings. When a baby cries, the baby just cries. Is not considering, should I cry, should I not cry? He just cries. He just knows when something's off and just cries. So we're going to talk a lot about this too, of how to get back into this just freedom of expression. So I'm going quickly here, but this is the beautiful vagus nerve, and this is the good news. um, so you can see, so the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve in the body. It's the longest nerve in the body. There's a lot of information coming out now on the vagus nerve, and it's key to health, our health and well-being. Um, so I know that a lot of what I'm saying probably isn't new, and maybe it's covered more from other instructors. I hope so, because it's really exciting. And it's called the vagus because it travels, it wanders, it basically is what regulates our nervous system. So we're taking in impressions and through the frontal cortex, and then our vagus nerve is what signals the body to be in fight, flight, or rest, to be in sympathetic or parasympathetic response. So let's see, what else did I write here? It's a mediator between thinking and feeling, and this is a fascinating thing. It's the biological source of intuition. It's being found. So this is why we feel this gut feeling, because the vagus nerve, you know, we're taking in this information of an event or a situation, and then we feel it in our gut. We do have this connection, you know, so that this is our intuition. I mean, the vagus nerve goes all the way to our gut. It also goes through our vocal, it touches our vocal cords and our laryngeal system here. So it's this is the great news for singing and vocal work, is that the voice is the, I feel, the best way, and the breath and the voice is the best way to stimulate the vagus nerve, because we want this vagus nerve stimulated in a healthy way. We want the vagal tone to be high, and I'm going to talk about that more. But how do we increase our vagal tone? The higher the vagal tone we have, then we are in parasympathetic more often. We're in this restorative state more often. Yeah, and so this is also key to the how our organism heals itself, is through the vagus nerve. And so back to the chronic stress, you know, in our daily life, in modern our modern world, we have so many stressors, and what happens is that it's this low grade stress. So it's a different kind of trauma than our ancestors, a different kind of stress from our ancestors, where it's not one big threat, you know, necessarily. Sometimes, in unfortunate cases, of course, but I'm talking about the more of the low grade stress. And what this happens is it creates pathways for this. It's called limbic kindling, and so our limbic system gets overactive, and it's a kindling. So then those neural pathways become very open and so we end up being in chronic pain. We get these chronic illnesses that we haven't seen in previous generations even. So more and more the interference that we have, you know, through so many things. So we have ways that we can deal with this, and luckily, you know, it's in our bodies. It's in our bodies, and they're very natural ways. So for the high vagal tone, we basically feel more relaxed. We are more connected as well. And this is another fascinating thing, going back to us being mammals, right? Is what does it mean to have to be in a good parasympathetic response to our environment? It means also to be more sociable, to be able to socialize, and to essentially be a good mammal, to work well with others. And this is how we're wired. We're wired for this, and we're wired for love and compassion and empathy. So this gives way to empathy. And going back to your question, David, of what could I do if I had all the resources in the world? Well, it would be to really somehow inspire and help people to touch into this innate capacity in themselves to feel this empathy, to feel, first of all, this resilience in themselves, where they have this healing capacity through their breath, through their voice, through their nervous system, response, and that we have the greatest gift through our breath and our voice to be able to control this and to manage this for ourselves. So when we do this, we can be more empathetic, and we can be more compassionate. We can have more resources and more inner resources in order to be of service. So wow, yeah, that's basically it for me. This one just shows the all the different systems and organs that the vagus nerve regulates and works with. And here we are. This is, so how do we know? How do we know what our vagal tone is? This is a really good question. So the vagal tone and heart rate variability, they're interconnected. And this is an exciting way where you can see um, your vagal tone through monitoring your heart rate variability if you're that inclined or inspired to do that. And in fact, that diagram is from the HeartMath Institute, and they're also from the Bay Area, and they're doing really fascinating studies and have technology to monitor your heart rate variability, therefore monitor your vagal tone. So I won't go through all of this, but I think I already did go through all of this. We we can, the fastest way is really through this deep breathing, is to get our parasympathetic activated so that our heart rate variability goes up. So the higher the heart rate variability, that means the variables between the beats in our hearts, the healthier we are, the more adaptable we are, which makes sense because you want your heart rate to be variable, to be adaptable. And that goes back to being sociable. So as well, social connections. And so with this adaptability, right? And so it's, in fact, I'm just remembering that it's not just the strongest, that's not about the strongest will survive, it's about the most adaptable that will survive, right? That's what finding that it's really about this adaptability. So um, there's this virtuous feedback loop between positive emotions, physical health, positive social connections, and having this high vagal tone, and just a strong vagal tone and the high heart rate variability. So, and then also, this is our electromagnetic field of our heart, which is beautiful, right? And we can actually feel this. We can actually feel this, and it's coming back into our sensate sense of self, right? And to heighten our sensitivity in a way that isn't going to make us fall victim to all of the stress in life, but to actually make us more resilient. So this is another big passion of my work, is how to use our sensitivity to be of greater service to the world and to have it work for you. It's such a gift to have sensitivity. So really owning it, really feeling it, really sensing it, and being able to work with it consciously, not just be unconscious with this sensitivity. If you think about this, really, how this is the electromagnetic field of our heart and how far it extends around us. So that's something really to be conscious around, and to see the power of that. It's something like 100 times, I think I wrote it down, 100 times farther than the electromagnetic field of the brain. So again, um, low heart rate variability would mean that we have this, we're not as healthy and we're less adaptable, and it's more of that flat affectation too, where it's just this dullness. So we want that high heart rate variability. I already covered this. So deep breathing, deep breathing. So this is really a huge piece. And this is why in basically every spiritual tradition in the world and every religion in the world has some kind of practice regarding the breath, right? Whether it's mantra or Hail Marys or whatever it is, pranayam, there's these regulations of the breath even if it's just simple prayers said out loud, the Quran, reciting the Quran out loud. We're basically increasing our exhalations with intention, with a positive intention. So this is the magic formula right here, having that positive feeling in the heart, having that positive intention in the mind. And so we have that consciousness, and then we have the elongated exhalations, and we have sound. We have that sound, the sound. And then when we get into mantra and prayers, we have a whole nother there's a whole nother level of power there, because with mantra we're talking about thousands of years of humans focusing on the same intent with the same words over and over. So it's not just the words anymore, it's the power around them. Just like a statue that's been prayed to for thousands of years with oils, it's not just a statue anymore. It has its imbued power. So mantras are extremely powerful, and they deserve full reverence, right? So, and back to the somatic therapy aspect of this, with the intent and the elongated exhalations, this is really the key. And we can do this in simple ways as well. We don't even need to have the mantra and all of that. We can do, I think on another one I wrote it down, but there's specific ways to work with the breath that we'll go over. So again, shallow breathing. When we breathe shallowly up here, is my video also on and being recorded? Can you also see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So when we breathe up here, we are signaling our brain, specifically the hypothalamus and the amygdala region in this inside of it's really that instinctive um, threat, not threat uh, response that tells the nervous system. So there's the breathing, shallow breathing says that there's something wrong, I'm under threat, and then that sends those stress hormones for more dysregulation to happen. So with the deep breath, when you breathe low and wide and deep, which we're going to go over, um, it's the opposite. The brain says, okay, we can relax now, and we can start to restore. We can start to restore our body, and our mind and our heart as well, and be available for healing, be available for others. Um, all of that improves mitochondrial function. And there's this also the thing, like with the really deep inhales, that does trigger the sympathetic. I know there's some uh, Kundalini yoga practices and some of this newer breathwork practices where they do really breathe a lot in the upper body. So it's just something to be conscious of what's actually happening. It can excite you. It can excite you, but it also is stimulating the sympathetic. Um, as long as you have that exhale with the parasympathetic, there's specific reasons for each of these practices. So, restoring vagal tone. So deep breathing, we went over that. Singing, loud singing. So this comes back to the second song that I sang. There's these traditions of these loud belting songs, and they're from these mountainous regions where it's literally shepherds singing to each other from mountain to mountaintop and communicating to the animals, and so you have to learn this technique to be able to have your voice carry without straining your voice if you're doing this for long hours. And then it also kept the bodies going. It helped these people going and being able to work with these songs. So it's really quite a treasure of a healing thing. And then the other reason is because when you sing in this belting style, and sing at all, but especially the belting style, you're actually vibrating the vagus nerve itself. So luckily, our vocal cords and the vagus nerve are touching, so we can stimulate the vagus nerve directly by activating our voice and by humming. Humming is another way to gently vibrate the vagus nerve and to stimulate it. So Humming is also a beautiful medicinal thing you can do for your voice. If you feel like your voice is tired, you can just hum and I do that a lot in my practices, just to get warmed up, and it's also stimulating those feel, you'll feel better after you do it. So music, laughing, mantra, laughing, of course. Luckily, it's all the things that make us feel good. Hugging, gargling. So why gargling? Well, gargling is really because you're activating that part again, like just like the belting, the loud singing. You want to get back here, and open it up. And then, oops, and then shaking, humming, purring. I added these in as well because we're going back into these mammalian kin trauma responses that it's really helpful for us to remember. So we have these innate capacities to release stress, right? Just like um, just like in the wild, when a gazelle is almost attacked by a lion, she shakes it off and then she's back grazing again a few minutes later. So we have this shaking response too, that it's been kind of enculturated out of us, or yeah, society was just considered not appropriate or something. But when you go into these deeper levels of Taoist yoga, qigong, those and systems like that, you'll encounter these shaking practices for that reason. And then there's the TRE that is also being developed that I've trained in as well. So it's a way to actually shake the trauma out of your body. Humming, purring, cats also purr to relieve stress. It's these natural ways. And when people come to me and they feel blocked in their voice and their throat chakra, this is really where I like to start, is just getting back to this innate birthright of pure expression. Because as humans in the society, like I mentioned, the baby, we have this perfect cry when we're born, we're perfectly expressed, and then what happens, with our environment, we start to realize, oh, this isn't okay, this isn't okay, and our perception limits, and we start to develop defense mechanisms, and then we get shut down. And there's always one memory, or more than one, usually in every group I work with, or every person has a story of that choir director or their parent or their sibling that told them to be quiet and shut up, and then that they never sang again, or they've always had this block in their throat. And so why is that? You would think like that's one instant, why would it scar someone for the rest of their lives? Because I hear this story. I've been teaching for 25 years, and I hear this story over and over and over and over again. And it shows how vulnerable we are, and what a gift the voice is, and how it's fully transparent. Everything is in the voice. Everything physically, physiologically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually is in the voice. And that's why it's the greatest gift of, like, I feel for an art form, is to be able to use the voice, and also can be the scariest and the most vulnerable. So it contains that power that once we really tap into it and own our truth, and then just gently work with it, come back into the innate capacity of expression. It's not about presentation. It's not about presentation. It's about expression, pure expression, and starting there. So I would just recommend for anyone who has these blocks to just start to vocalize more, start to um, mm, whatever you're feeling, just like get it, learn how to remember how to work it through your system. Let it work it through your system. It's your healing tool, is this voice. And really working with expressives. So, okay, here's the breathing exercises. So the first one is that there's so many, but outside of just the more spiritual practices, you can get into these. Just inhale on 4 through the nose, and then I like to count for 2 on the hold, and then exhale for 8 from the belly. And I'm going to stand and go through things like this in more detail. But if you can just remember, inhale 4, exhale 8, Or there's the 3-6-9, inhale 3, hold for 6, and exhale on 9. So those are two very simple ones. And of course, on the exhale, you can imagine all the stress leaving the body into the Earth's rejuvenation center. Okay, so I'm going to skip back a little before we go into practice because I want to just touch on this piece around grief. Those songs that I sang were probably heard could be interpreted as quite sad. So I'm going to just point to this and how also this is something that I feel has been lost in our society is how sacred grief is. It's considered in a lot of indigenous cultures that grief and praise are two sides of the same coin. And we know when a loved one has passed or when we've lost a loved one, that through our grieving, we're praising, we're honoring them. And so Martin Prechtel is a teacher, author who he's native and he was living in Guatemala and was exiled. He has many books on his life story and everything, but he's quite a poet as well. So I really love the way that he speaks about grief. So grief expressed out loud for someone we have lost or a country or home we have lost is in itself the greatest praise we could ever give them. Grief is praise because it's the natural way love honors what it misses. So, and then he goes on, and other traditional indigenous cultures agree that unexpressed grief can be actually a reason for our maladies in modern culture, and we're carrying the unexpressed grief of our ancestors, not just our own unexpressed grief, because it needs to move, it needs to transform. And so one of the most beautiful practices is to just even consider transforming this grief into beauty. How do we transform grief into beauty? And I feel like these songs do that. These songs do that. It could be painting, it could be other things, it could even just be movement. But transforming it into beauty or transforming it into natural expression, like I mentioned before, wails, howls, cries. And then also there's rich traditions of very specific medicinal healing sounds that we use with our voice that also metabolize this grief. So music and singing expresses what cannot be expressed in words. It's what bonds humanity as our common language because, you know, these kinds of emotions, it doesn't have to just be grief, but it's something that's even beyond language, right? So that's why we have music. That's why we have these ancient ways of expressing. So it's another beautiful poem. I'm going to just keep going here because I want to get into practice. But I do want to touch on this since something that I do offer in the school and something that I offer in my classes is just an orientation on Eastern modal scales, Eastern traditions of musicality. So just tying it quickly into why look at these instruments. For example, all of these, this is a Turkish tambur. It's one of the most, it's one of the most like it's kind of the queen of Turkish Ottoman music, of classical Turkish music. These are all the microtonal frets there on this instrument. So in Western music, we have 8 steps in an octave. And in Turkish makam is a mode. Makam is the Arab and Turkish modal system. That's it's the grandmother of the Byzantine modal system, and therefore the modal system that we know about in the West. So the Turkish makam, there's 53 notes in an octave, 53 notes. This is in the classical music, okay? In the folk music, here's a folk music instrument, the saz. So you see there's less of them, but there's still about 24, 22, 24. Same with the Persian. So from 8 to 24 notes in between an octave. We have in the South Indian Carnatic style, we have of music, we have 22 shrutis, notes. In the Arab maqam, 24. So all around, there's that's arguable, which is part of the fun. There's like depending on what region you're from, what instruments you play, you're going to argue on what those intervals are. This is the Persian tar right here. This is the Arab oud, and Turkish and Arab oud. This is the Turkish saz. This is a Egyptian kamanche. It has no frets, and same with the oud, has no frets, so you do all of those microtones by ear. And then that is a another kind of rabab from a Mongol region. So so really, what is this? What's this all about? And I think that the quickest explanation is coming back to what I was talking about, the intricacies of emotional expression, right? Intricacies of emotional expression. So without getting too much into this subject, because I can go on for hours just about this, but this music, it lends its way to be a very personal expression as well as a divine expression. So when the tempered scale became a thing to fit it onto a keyboard, to fit it onto the 8-note octave, really the benefit of that was harmony, was to create harmony. And we hear that in Gregorian chant. We hear that starting to come from Byzantine into Gregorian chant, where it's these beautiful harmonies, right? And it has this tendency to lift us up, to the divine. So and I love that music as well, and have also studied it. However, this music, I feel it does the same lifting up, but it also is going in at the same time in this very personal way. So it's something to just maybe like listen, and if, I'm sure most of you already have a good understanding of all this, but it just shows like it's a part of us. It's a part of humanity and our limitless abilities to express, really. So this all comes back to reconnection, right? Reconnection, expression. I was just kind of going off on all of this. I think I've already talked about it before, but here we are, like we're in the sixth mass extinction on the planet of the species. And this is because of our disconnection, right? It's disconnection from our food supply. It's disconnection from the effects of our actions. So we've lost our senses, literally. We've lost our senses. We're not sensing actually what are the effects are of our actions, and sensing each other in the ways that we can. So this is just an interesting tidbit. In ancient Egypt, it was considered that we had 360 senses, with the poetry referring to 10,000 senses. And many of the rituals were cultivated to nurture and cultivate these senses, right? And also with my own qigong practice and with these Taoist arts I'm finding, and with yoga, the deeper internal yogas, this is what it's all about, is resensitizing ourselves. And then going, really returning into prayer, into that communion that I spoke of before. And this is something that I was at a conference 2 years ago, I think it was, and they brought up an indigenous elder from Mexico to speak about climate change, and to speak about what is the main thing that we can do. And he actually said prayer. He said, because if we can't connect through prayer, if we can't feel our interconnection, then of course we're not going to feel the effects. We have to pray. We have to get that connection, that spiritual connection too. So yeah, okay. I think I'm good with the presentation part. So David, is there anything do you think there's anything I should cover with that before we go to practice?
Nope, we're all set. let's practice.
Okay, how much time do we have?
Probably another 15 minutes, maybe 20.
Okay, good. So, um, now we have all of the practice part I go over more in my courses, and one of them is being offered through this program. Another one's being offered through David's program, and then my own courses. So I just invite you, if you're interested in more, please contact me. But this is going to be just a quick overview. So with those, I just want to go over. I'm just going to kneel actually for a better view. Um, that parasympathetic breathing. So we want to breathe in, expand the belly, and then expand the lower rib cage all the way around. And you want to pretty much stop here. So it's really just these lower diaphragmatic intercostal muscles that you're expanding, okay? And then you want to exhale, and let's just exhale, and let the belly come in first. And you'll strengthen this area by resisting the temptation to collapse here, creating more strength here. So for vocal technique, you really want to create the strength here. For simple, like just parasympathetic release, it's really just about bottom first. Inhale, expand, and try to not go all the way up here. And then exhale. So with that, I actually am going to stand. I want to just do one practice where we're rooting in. And the first thing, so when we work with the energetics of the voice, there's three principles I like to work with. And these are Taoist principles of how energy moves. So there's the disbursement of energy, cultivation of energy, and harmonization of energy. So that's easy to remember. So first, of course, you want to disperse. You want to let out anything that you don't want in there first before you cultivate. So shaking, shaking, shaking. Letting out and letting your voice go in there and release. Just very simple. Getting into your body, letting it release. And then we go into the different ways of cultivating. So one way is to just go ahead and plant your feet. Alignment is something I go into deeply as well. Alignment, dropping tailbone into the earth, dropping, connecting in with the portals in the bottom of your feet in the middle, connecting into the energy center of the earth through the body. Dropping down, from the waist down, dropping down. And then from the waist up, then we're going to just start to use our visualization. Visualization is key with all of this. You're bringing in that positive restorative energy in through the bottom of the feet. Let it travel in through your spine. So when it travels through your spine, you're creating more space in between each vertebrae. Lifts up all the way up through the neck. I'm going really fast here, but you get that. I know you'll get this quickly. And then when it hits this occiput region, where we have this access to the vagus nerve, you really want to create a lot of space there. So it's this lift and spread here. And then we're going to bring in the inner smile. Now the inner smile is magic. It opens it up. It brings a gratitude and an invitation to goodness. It's that gratitude is that magnet for auspicious energy. So bringing in that inner smile, smiling as this energy travels up through the feet. And as it travels through the body, really appreciating the organs of the body, the breath. And let the breath just naturally deepen and widen if it wants to. Bringing in this light through the spine. And then as it reaches the throat, you're just going to let the larynx drop in the throat and the jaw follow. And if you want to let out a yawn here, just to release tension. As tension likes to hide in the jaw. Opening that occiput. Energy travels into the brain, into the mouth, creating more space for that inner smile. And then drawing in through the crown, your own heavenly chi, your own divine light into the body. Let it shower you all the way down. You can visualize this golden light showering you down through the body, appreciating with the inner smile. And now with a deep belly breath, we're going to inhale. We're going to bring our hands up, and as we bring our hands up with our palms down, we're really going to feel the nurturing qualities of the yin, the earth, the sea, this pure potentiality of creation. Feel it holding us. Feel how effortlessly the earth holds us every day, all of us. Feel that strength, that power. Bring it up. As it reaches the heart, the expressive center, go ahead and turn your palms outward, reaching up with the shoulders down, bringing in the heavenly chi of the yang, the divine creative force in through the body, through the central channel of self coming down. We're going to do this 2 more times, and we're going to add the inner smile with a nice ah sound as we go down. So, inhale. One more time. Good. And go ahead and bring your hands to your dantian, to your core center. Still feeling yourself as this vehicle between heaven and earth. This creative vessel that's unique to you. You can feel all your ancestors behind you that have prayed for you and sang for you to be here and sent their blessings forward for you to be here in this unique vessel, this unique way of creating that only you have. And just bring in this energy again from the bottom of your feet, through the top of your head into this ball of light. Really sensing and feeling the ball of light in between your hands. You can move your hands like an accordion to really feel. And the more you do this, the more you're going to actually physically feel the energy, tangibly. Find it. And as you inhale, you're drawing the energy into this ball of light. As you exhale, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter. One more breath like this. Just bringing in all the medicine you need for today into this ball of light. And on the next exhalation, you're going to put your left hand on your belly, right hand over the left, thumbs touching, release, and go ahead and rotate clockwise, warming up the torso. And we're going to go ahead and do just a couple more vocal warm-ups. So we already did this, but deep breath into the belly. You don't want to over-breathe up here. A lot of this is expanding the vocal palate too, so we want to expand that back. All the way down, and then the front. I like to start with the front with the and then an ah with a really bright inner smile. So we're getting that real lift here in the soft palate and the hard palate. Letting it go all the way down your range. So these are glissandos, and I love glissandos because it takes all the pressure off of having to sing scales, but you're still scanning your whole range. So so it's a way to just check your voice, see where it's at, and the brightness is where a lot of those overtones are. There's also overtones in the back, but if you want to cultivate overtones, it's not about sounding good. It's not about sounding any particular way. Remember, it's about exploring and be willing to make funny sounds, have fun with it. Just as long as you're not straining, so there's no constriction happening here. It's it's also a way to move past that break and to bridge that break. I'm noticing I have one today, so it's good as a demonstration. So I'm just going to get in front of it next time. There we go. Into the bottom. And you don't want to go into the vocal fry and stay there. That's actually a little tiring for your larynx, so for your vocal cords. So you want to get in front of that. And smile and lift here, even though it's low. So I go through this in more detail, all of this in more detail in my classes, but it just is a quick, fun overview. And then want to go over, let's just go over an overview for the belting since I talked about that. The fastest way, well, one exercise that I love that I learned from my one of my Bulgarian teachers, they teach us in the choirs, mi, la, mi, la, mi, la, mi, la, mi, then you go up, mi, la, mi, la, mi. And then when you can go up half steps, and then you get to this high upper chest belting voice, hey! That's really that sound. Hey! Hey! And I'm feeling the overtones open back here. It's all open and pops out. And I'm not pushing here. It's not hey! 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 And then that's where let me do this with the drone so you can see, because the drone is part of the healing aspect of this kind of singing. So so you can just, with this drum, hey, hey, give it a try. So in the groups, we have fun with those kinds of harmonies. And let's see. Do we have like 10 more minutes, maybe?
No, we're just about there.
Just about there.
Yeah.
Okay. So another big piece of this is the vowels, as more on a vocal singing technique, and also for sound healing. The vowels are really important. The vowels are the resonance, so we really want to open the vowels. So you can start with just ma, me, mi, mo, mu, ma, me, mi, mo, mu, with that belly breath too. And there are specific areas in the body, specific chakras that correlates with each of the vowels, and you really get to know when you dive into the resonance, you get to know the secrets of these, the medicine of these vowels, of each of the sounds, and how it resonates in your body. And this is why mantra as well is so powerful. So we go into all of this in detail in the courses. And I have a weekend retreat coming up in December, first weekend of December, that you can check out, where we're going to go deeply into all of this. So, and it's all online, and you can attend as much as you would like and listen to the recordings as well. So, okay, I think I'll end it there because I would just keep going for a long time if I kept going.
Cool. Cool. Wow. It's so amazing how shut down people are You know, I mean, if everybody would just realize the main rule is that you can never ever make a wrong or bad sound. You can't. I mean, it's always perfect, right? I mean, it's really that should be uh, posted in the room when babies are born. And
Yeah,
taught.
to really own the power of the sound because it is our verb creates, right? It's our creative force.
Uh-huh.
And so I really think people underestimate that as well of how much what you say is creating. So that's a whole nother aspect of it. So to really, really own that power and to use it for good, to
Hmm.
use it for good, really, um, and to use it for healing, and not just these practices, not just singing, but in our daily life and how we communicate in
It's
these
interesting. It's
lists.
healing, then celebration,
Yes.
right?
And yeah, so simultaneously, we have to celebrate as we go because, we're alive. We made it this far. A lot to celebrate.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. That was great. It's really nice to have the full perspective and get to practice as well.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, let me share the
Bye.
screen and I'll play the final closing video here. Closing. Cool. Thank you and take care.
Thank you.